Please, could you give us a little introduction on your current role and what you do?
Sure, yeah. So my name's Wasim Mushtaq, and I'm the Interim COO at CFIT, Center for Finance, Innovation, Technology. So I kind of look after the entity, the infrastructure, operations, finance, technology, a lot of the governance for the center, and then I support a lot of the other leadership members, the chair, the board, the CEO, and a lot of the other directors to make sure that we are positioned correctly in terms of delivery capability.
What do you consider your biggest professional achievement to date?
That's a really difficult question to answer. I was kind of thinking about it, but I think probably my biggest professional achievement today is kind of just working with lots of good teams and building teams and being part of teams. I don't want to say like delivering this project or program, or I think it's more about creating really high performing teams and being part of them and learning from them. So yeah, and I continue to do that, so I'm happy with that.
What do you think are the top 3 non-negotiables in creating a successful FI/FinTech partnership at scale?
The first one I would say is product and solution fit. So it's kind of the what and the why. Especially if you're doing a collaboration or a partnership, you need to agree what you're doing, who you're doing it for, the target market, the fit in the industry. Really be clear on what specific kind of jobs to be done you're focusing on, and then effectively kind of communicating the value and accessibility of that to the customer. The second one would be more around alignment on how you're going to deliver that then. So be clear on who's delivering what, who's looking at what, make sure you complement each other. As in, financial institutions may want to expand more of their digital offerings and capability, while fintechs may want to look at more expanding their customer base. So you have to be clear on who's supporting what and how. And then I think the third one is more about the kind of the technology and the infrastructure you're going to use, because more like the who and the when. And the way I think about this is that, you know, most fintech and financial institution companies, you know, it's based on the technology and the tech stack that you use and the solution. So being clear that it's robust and scalable, being clear that you can use the data and segment the data correctly, and then turn that data into insights, you know, utilizing kind of modular, componentized kind of banking modules, data sharing agreements, API integrations, and the cloud. I think that's very important and critical in terms of any kind of partnership that makes sense.
Amazing. Data infrastructure and integration is a key element that affect legacy institutions. How should they go about owning their data strategy and to compete with some of the newer players?
So this is actually a really good question, and a lot of the kind of senior management in fintech and banking is spent on this. I would say probably kind of 3-pronged approach might be good. So I think you got to improve your platforms. You know, a lot of legacy institutions, and you know, they have legacy platforms for a specific reason, because they've been in business for a long time. So just a continued prioritization of modernizing the infrastructure in terms of data, adopting, you know, some new technologies like cloud computing and analytics to allow them to efficiently store, process, and analyze this kind of the data sets. And then, you know, from there, you can, depending on how you want to do it, you can leverage kind of data lakes, warehouses, you know, and sharing. I think that's important. Second point would be more about data kind of governance and quality assurance. So the key point here is that when you're trying to improve, you know, your infrastructure in general, you need quality and governance around that. So developing strong practices is essential. There should be clear ownership of who's looking at what elements of the data as well. Yeah, and that's especially important when it comes to kind of GDPR and data privacy compliance and regulations. Then there's a piece here about data accuracy. So I'm always a big proponent of like developing some kind of data stewardship roles or some capabilities within the company so everyone's clear. And then the last one, I would say, is kind of more collaboration and partnerships. And the point, what I mean here is that a lot of legacy institutions should be exploring how to partner with other more innovative kind of institutions and data providers, whether that could be aggregator or it could be a third party where it could be you house some of your data and you can refine it. And a lot of that can actually be linked to then fostering more insights in terms of new markets. You get a lot of companies that offer no-code solutions, kind of data visualization tools as well. So I would start with those three, but I mean, you could probably have a top 10, but I'll stop there.
Amazing, thank you. Do you think there is too much of a gap that still exists between traditional banks and digital-only banks?
So to answer that question, I think if you asked me 10 years ago, because it's 2023 now, so if you asked me in 2013, I'd say that there's a really big gap in terms of just the technology capability, the digital nuances, as well as maybe the developer code and thing. But the reality now that it's a very blurred line. A lot of banks just call themselves kind of fintechs, and fintechs want to be banks, and banks want to be fintechs. And a lot of banks just try to market their digital capabilities now and omni-channel and so forth. So it's kind of interesting. I would say kind of from a data and infrastructure perspective, digital-only banks and kind of fintechs have probably an edge in this category because that's all they focus on. They've got the modern architecture, they're cloud native by design, and their systems are very smooth. It allows them easier access to collect, process, and leverage data efficiently, and they usually have like an agile kind of a methodology in terms of getting things done. Traditional banks have legacy systems. They have to run the bank and kind of change the bank. They're not as nimble, and there are a lot more kind of regulatory burdens, I would say, especially if they're in lots of different kind of data centers or localities around the world, just different rules to manage in terms of reporting as well. Technology and innovation, again, I would say that digital-only banks and fintechs are probably, again, a little bit front of the banks there. However, a lot of traditional banks actually have these partnership models now. They have their own innovation hubs. They have partnerships with fintechs. They have kind of hackathons and accelerators and so forth. So it's a bit of a gray area. I think it's been merged. Plus, a lot of the customers of fintechs are now banks, as in banks are using the capability as a service. I think that one's a bit blurred, I would say. And then the third one, kind of skills and talent. I think about 10 years ago, I'd say that actually most of the skills would have been actually in banks. And what I mean by that is that if you were a developer, or if you were a regulatory expert, or if you were like a bank manager, the experience and the skills were mostly in the banks. The reason being traditional banks, the reason being is because that's where you paid the most in terms of the money, and the talent was attracted there. You'd have your graduate recruitment rounds or what have you, and there's experience there. But now what's happened is that I think a lot of the people that are a lot more innovative and entrepreneur, kind of in spirit and in mind, have pivoted over to kind of fintechs and challengers and digital-only banks. So I think actually it depends what you're looking for, but I think the more innovative talent at the moment and edgy talent is in those kind of digital-only banks. However, it's blurred lines again because it's turned into just a big ecosystem now. So I don't think it's like a binary yes, no, or left or right. It's more merged. It's definitely hard to answer now because I think, but the ultimate winners are going to be the customers here, because I think banks have upped their game and fintechs have got bigger and stronger. Was it last week I saw not an article, but it was a trend that Monzo was the most, or is going to be the most highly downloaded app for digital banking thing since 2017. It's about to overtake Barclays. So I mean, so that just gives you an idea.
Perfect. Do you believe embedded finance can drive profitability? How can we ensure it does? And where next for open banking and embedded finance?
Okay, probably three questions there. So let me kind of decompartmentalize that. Okay, so can embedded finance drive profitability? Yes, absolutely. Because if you think what kind of embedded finance is, it's about expanding the financial capacity, capability, and journey, for providers and for customers, right? So you can have expanded kind of revenue streams, new products that potentially you could provide to your clients. Through that, you'll have better customer engagement. And by doing that, you should have lower customer acquisition costs because you've already got the existing customer and then you're providing them another product rather than doing a whole marketing campaign to sell something. And on the back of that, there's kind of data insights. In terms of how we can ensure it kind of drives profitability, I guess some of it is to do with partnership selection in terms of the incumbent or the company providing the service. I mean, who are you partnering with and what are those handoffs, and what are the kind of profit sharing kind of elements of that. So some of that is to do with monetization strategy. There will be data analytics as well, but I think what you'll see is that you'll see more scale in terms of products and speed to market and customers being able to pick them up. I think and user experience should really be improved as well. The challenge will be more about regulatory compliance and making sure that if you're like providing a loan product and then somewhere in the journey you're providing an investment product, have you gone through the due diligence and the necessary steps to make sure the customer knows what they're doing and also the risks involved in these products? Because it's not just about selling them, it's about making sure it's the right product for the right customer, because the conduct risk is an important element here. And then the new regulation about doing what's right for the customer and just in general, right product, right fit, right customer. That's going to be a hurdle and a challenge, I think, which is important to cover off. And I think you mentioned where next for open banking and embedded finance. So I mean, I'm touching on this in terms of my current role as well and what our company does, but I would say it's quite obviously there's a movement to like a global expansion within that ecosystem. And what I mean by that is that lots of countries are providing their own regulations, their roadmaps, their open API integrations, and their platform to do that, and the standardization. So that's one. I think the ecosystem is evolving now. More customers and companies are providing these services, and that's going to improve competition. And then obviously reducing the margin, which overall the customer will benefit. There's a movement to enhance personalization. So once you have more information, you'll be able to understand the right product to give and service to give to your customers. That's important. Just talked about embedded finance there, but I think that's important here as well. The reason being is because you should be able to provide more solutions and services to customers in one place. There's a lot of talk about super apps as well. I think one of the richest men in the world is trying to create that super app, and it's interesting because a lot of big banks or fintechs are focusing on that market, doing lots of different things like Revolut is providing kind of holiday insurance and providing the ability to buy holidays. So it's just interesting how that's happening. And what I also would say is that regulation is evolving and adapting and looking into this, and there's starting to be more kind of asks for responses in terms of policies and thoughts on that. So I think that's good. And I think the last thing I'll say on this is that all of this is benefiting the customer, who's getting more choice, and we're hoping they'll get to a point that they're more empowered and they'll improve their financial awareness on products within this ecosystem. So yeah, I'm expecting that this is the next wave for open banking, open finance, embedded finance, sorry, and it's only a positive thing.
Amazing, thank you. Our customers are changing and FIs need to adapt to this. How can FIs keep up with customer expectations?
This is a hard one, because if you think about speed to market, in terms of if you try to create a product now that is demanded in the ecosystem now, by the time you actually launch it, it could take 6 to 9 months. The market and the customer might not want that anymore. So it's about always actually thinking what the customer may want in the future, and what the trends are, and building and going to that rather than where the customers. I think about it when, like playing football or, throwing a pass. You throw the ball to where you want the person to be, not where the person is, right? So it's about moving forward. So there's elements there about digital transformation, improving the UX for customer experience, the personalization piece. I think mobile, obviously, and digital, I think you have to create that. There's a lot of conversation about omni-channel and where does the human interaction need to be. 24/7 availability. I think everyone expects anything when they want it immediately. So how do you manage that in terms of support, automation? And then in terms of the larger piece, what I would say is financial wellness. There's a lot of piece now about, there's a lot of movement now about providing products that are giving customers better tools just to manage their overall financials. There's a big piece about transparency and trust now as well, and feedback loops and continuous learning. So I'm always a big fan of companies creating MVPs, doing a soft launch, getting some feedback in a closed unit, and then reiterating and relaunching and then going again and again. And I hope that that industry kind of moves into that situation more. But I think the key thing is going to be about prioritizing kind of user experience, and then from there kind of personalization and adapting to feedback as well, because we don't really know what customers want. We don't even know where some of the regulation will go as well until it happens. So being as proactive as possible is probably your best way of protecting yourself for the future.
Thank you. And finally, what are you looking forward to at FinTech Connect this year in December?
So, first of all, I'm looking forward just to kind of going back and kind of meeting, colleagues and, associates and friends that I've made kind of along the way since the last time. I'm looking forward to interacting with, the fellow moderators and panelists, and kind of the one-to-one networking. I think was really interesting last year for me. You've also got a quite really interesting mix of platform and solution providers, fintechs and banks, and I would say kind of more the influencers, and you get some really interesting conversations going during the networking. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to just sitting down and observing and listening to the panel. It's not just about me speaking. I actually like to just go and learn and listen, and I've seen the agenda. I think there's going to be some really interesting kind of conversations and topics. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'll probably try to take some time off work as well, and just to kind of really immerse myself in it.
What are your predictions for the biggest technology and innovation for 2024?
So I'm always conscious of what the hype is when you answer these types of questions, because most predictions are always wrong. We've seen the hype cycle from some aspects, digital assets and crypto. Then you've got the hype cycle for Web3, and then you've had the hypes, for other elements as well. So it seems to be quite obvious now, and quantum computing. I think what's obvious now for next year is that we've seen proven use cases of technology in artificial intelligence, AI, and machine learning evolving, and we've already seen, I think, positive benefits of that. Yeah, there are some other discussions about kind of the regulation on it, but I think it's quite clear to me, thinking about all of where the investment is going and how fintechs and other companies are pivoting, and a lot of consulting firms bringing out AI, hubs and AI sensors. I think machine learning AI is going to be a big focus in 2024. And what I'm keen to see is what are the products and the services that are actually going to be launched that have that. There's a lot at the moment about kind of copywriting and data, you know, and marketing and, you know, creating, you know, visuals, but I'm more interested in what is going to be evolved in terms of the financial markets piece. There's a big question about compliance. You know, do we just hand it over to AI because it's very binary, black and white, yes or no? You know, so I'm interested in really to see that, and I think that's probably going to be my biggest prediction in terms of technology being used.
What are your top 3 priorities for 2023/2024?
So obviously one of the priorities, not to sound cliche, is to make sure I attend FinTech Connect, which I will be doing anyway. There are quite a few events, you know, that are coming into the season. So for me, it's about really just connecting with the ecosystem, catching up with friends, and really having some of these interesting conversations to kind of end the year on in terms of strategy, and then focus on next year. For me, next year and this year, personally, like I love to learn, and I'm always interested and excited to pick up some fintech books or focus on and deep dive into some new technologies. I'll be spending more time on AI, I think, and really just to see where that pivots out in terms of next year and just the wider market.